Aloha and welcome to Capital Connection, hosted by Senator Angus McKelvey. I am your moderator, Tom Blackburn Rodriguez. And today's show is going to be kind of a timely, interesting show. Stuart Coleman of WAI, Wastewater Alternatives and Innovations, he's led the coalition to help shape policy and pass landmark legislation to reduce pollution of Hawaii's coastal areas. Stuart Coleman will be on with us a little bit later on in the show. And no, we did not bring the rain because Stuart was going to be on the show, but it is a kind of a happy coincidence. So we look forward to talking to Stuart and about the legislation, about ways to reduce pollution off of our coastal areas. And now your host of Capital Connection, Senator Angus McKelvey.
Aloha, everybody. Aloha, Tom. Thanks for being here again this morning, and welcome to another edition of our rainy show today.
That's right. Now, Senator, I always ask you this, and I don't know why you can't get coffee in the morning, but we're here with Gary, our engineer. We got a nice cup of coffee. How are you doing, sir?
I am steeping French press as we speak.
Oh, right.
So hopefully sometime when Stuart comes and joins us, the press will be ready. We'll start the 10-minute magic marker, and we'll have a great conversation with him, and talking about the issues with wastewater, the cesspool conversion working group, and, of course, his company that's looking to create a circular economy through a wastewater system.
Excellent.
Innovation jobs with all the crap.
Well, as we say at the FCC, welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show. That's ding one, right?
Senator, what's going on with kind of issues around the community? The Maui Bridge and pros and cons?
Maui Bridge program. I was a guest on Think Tech. You can watch the episode. It streams on their internet channel and on YouTube. And they were doing an episode with the Hawaii Restaurant Association on the Maui Bridge program, which is a program for businesses that was started by the county with MEO and Maui Economic Development Board, Maui Economic Opportunity. Long story short, there's several pools of grants from $1 to $600,000 or more. All companies that have been affected by the fire, directly or indirectly, are I guess told apply. The larger pools of money, the ones that were requested in the larger amounts, will be handled by the Maui Economic Development Board, the $600,000 above, while the two smaller pools will be handled by Maui Economic Opportunity. The $600,000 plus will be waitlisted because of the amount of money in there to ensure that as many businesses can get the funding as they can. And there are some limitations to it that I think we need to look at as we move into the session, and hopefully through the legislative session we can partner with the county, the chamber, and others to build on that program. But there are some limitations that do need to be addressed in moving the program forward that could be problematic for business owners and particular restaurant owners trying to utilize the money.
So, Senator, just very quickly again for the listeners, there's three different entry points. Can you just hit those really quickly, what they are again?
Yes. From the three entry points are based on the amount requested, and the two entry points from like $1 to just below $600,000 will $0 to $300,000, $300,000 to just under $600,000. Those two pools will be handled by Maui Economic Opportunity. The third pool of $600,000 or more will be handled by Maui Economic Development Board. Mm-hmm. And those are being waitlisted just to ensure that there can obviously be a spread of money to all the businesses. However, I think it's a great start. As I brought up on this show many, many times, businesses need the same rent relief, rent protection through the emergency proclamation. And they also need help with deferral or forbearance of their mortgages. And unfortunately, those are two areas to which the bridge money cannot be used. And so you have situations where people, are still on the hook to pay these things. They're getting the bridge money, but they can't use it to pay it. And so this could cripple them in their ability to restart their business elsewhere until Lahaina can come back.
And you see an opportunity for the legislature to strengthen and perhaps expand the program?
I believe so. Yeah, I believe it's a good program. I think that the limitations can be addressed, and there's going to have to be a lot of partnering between the county, state, and feds when it comes to Maui and Lahaina. And we're all in the same canoe now. The damage is island-wide, and that's why the bridge program is available to any business that was affected directly or indirectly. And that's something that hopefully, as we strengthen it, will continue to be one of the strong parameters, because the contamination has spread, and now we see all businesses are suffering, and they're having a hard time being able to keep their employees. Another issue I think we need to look at is you can't use the bridge monies for employee salary or retention. And I think that's an important thing that needs to be looked at, because you lose the skilled workers, and it's happening already. If you reopen, you may not be able to attract any back in, and you may not be able to get the workers you had at the wage you were able to have. So This is something hopefully that will be looked at as well next year.
Well, I've talked to a number of restaurant owners in South Maui, and what they tell me is, maybe they can get the people to be the waiters and the servers, but it's the supervisors, the people with experience who've left the island, that they don't have people then to run the restaurant for them. So it is a real challenge.
Exactly. Well, and one of the examples I use is a restaurant. They were holding on. They got stormed from the fire. They lost their sous chef, and when became world renowned working in this Maui restaurant, another Maui restaurant. They left, and he said, "Look, I got to take a job elsewhere." And now that they found employment in another restaurant, they're probably not going to come back to Maui or the restaurant. Now, to attract somebody like this back, it's going to be a hard thing to do. So, other areas like have had disasters, have used mechanisms to ensure that not only the businesses can hang on, but that the employees can be retained, so that when the rebuild occurs and the shops open up and the restaurants can reopen, that their skilled staff is ready. But that kind of support needs to be extended to them for that very reason.
I understand. Senator, one thing that happened I saw in the news, and I'd never seen this picture before, we had a coconut rhinoceros beetle larvae found on Maui?
Yes, we did. Actually, in South Maui and Kihei, they found in one of the traps that they had, they discovered coconut rhinoceros beetle. These things are bad news.
And they're ugly, too. They're very ugly.
They very much are. Look like something out of one of those Clash of the Titan movies with their large horns. But they basically burrow into the tree and they kill it. Mm-hmm. And once the coconut rhinoceros beetles, there was a info briefing about it in Honolulu with Department of Ag, which they announced that this had just happened. They felt confident that they had controlled that outbreak. But the fact is, they're already on Maui. They're showing up, and as the old movie expression goes, life never ceases, right?
Yes.
Life keeps trying. I mean, ag inspectors only work 5 days a week, not state holidays. Invasive species work 24/7, 365. And so once they're found, even though it was an isolated incident, it's very troublesome, because like little fire ants, they start to spread and spread. And for every one you catch or detect, there may be several others that you don't. And the one thing about the coconut rhinoceros beetle that came out in the informational briefing that was interesting is they actually will adapt. Like in Guam, they discovered that they burrow deep under the ground and attack the tree from underneath. And so these are the kinds of things that they're keeping an eye on, like how will its behavior change in Hawaii, and how will that affect the ability to combat them and killing our coconuts. And coconuts, of course, is very important to culturally and for Hawaii and generally speaking. And once these are the kinds of once they kill the coconut trees, they don't come back.
Now, people need to report these kinds of things. They see something, like you said, the fire ants and the rhinoceros beetle. If they see these things, who can they report it to?
They can report to Department of Agriculture. Maui Invasive Species Council is the other one they can call. Their teams will come out. They've been doing a lot of the great work on Maui for years, and over several years we funded them to in the work that they're doing. And so you reach out to them immediately and report if you see what you think is coconut rhinoceros beetle damage from one. They have traps that they'll give you that basically they're like scent traps that you can put out that will attract them in, will confirm that they're there or not.
So they can get a hold of the Maui Invasive Species Committee? Is that right?
Maui Invasive Species Council, yeah. And also you have, of course, Department of Agriculture as well.
Okay. Senator, I think our guest has called in. Stuart Coleman has called in and is ready to have a conversation. Stuart, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Stuart,
How are you?
very nice to meet you. This is Tom Blackburn Rodriguez, and holding on the line to interview you and to learn a little bit more about what you do and how we can improve our processes here on Maui is State Senator Angus McKelvey. Senator?
Aloha, Stuart. Thank you so much for joining us today on the show. We really appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate you sharing your take on how you are, not my words, FCC, but in the words of an article, you're tackling a crappy situation. Let's begin with.
Indeed.
I couldn't resist that twice. You've been working with the cesspools in this issue. Our listeners may not be aware of the cesspool issue in Hawaii. Can you give a brief, synopsis of cesspool use? What the federal government has done to try to have people move away from them, and then and what the working group has done generally through some of the acts, like for instance, Act 125.
Yeah, thank you, and it is a topic that's full of crappy puns that go with the subject, and for a lot of people, and including me, when I first got into this issue, like 14 years ago, I didn't even really know what a cesspool was because I hadn't grown up around them. But it's basically just a hole in the ground. So all the waste from a house goes into the hole untreated and then percolates down and ends up in our groundwater. And so you can imagine that is, with 83,000 cesspools around the state, discharging about 52 million gallons per day of untreated waste that ends up in our groundwater and can affect our drinking water and our nearshore areas. It's a really huge threat. It's probably the largest threat to water quality in the whole state. And Hawaii has the most cesspools per capita in the country and was the last state to ban them. But thanks to the legislature and you all, you passed Act 120 to ban the future construction of cesspools, and then in 2017 Act 125 to mandate that all cesspools be converted by 2050. And then just to give you kind of a legislative background for your readers, for your listeners rather. The final act was Act 132 that created the cesspool conversion working group, and I served in that from 2018 to 2022, and so we just submitted our report last year.
Oh, okay, good. And what is I guess the big takeaway from the report? I mean, is there like a reader's guide or a TV guide, like synopsis of the report? I mean, what was its grand conclusion?
Yeah, it's not the best viewing. I'll warn you there.
Okay, you've been warned. It's an R-rated.
Yes, it's not quite R-rated. It's just ick-rated for ick factor. But I think the top recommendations that we're going to be coming before the legislature this coming session will be: we need to create a cesspool section at the Department of Health wastewater branch that really focuses on this issue, because right now we're converting maybe 200 cesspools a year, and to meet the mandate by 2050 to convert all 83,000 cesspools, we have to be doing more than 3,000 a year. And so we've just got to really ramp it up. The good news in all that is that this is a huge workforce opportunity. And so, we launched a program called Work for Water to address the shortage of workers, and just finished our first cohorts at Maui College and Hawaii Community College on the Big Island, where they have the most cesspools. And people are starting to wake up and say, oh, wow, this is a huge, fast-growing industry, and we're going to need all kinds of workers, from salespeople to engineers to contractors to pumpers, to inspectors. And so that's the silver lining, and the fact that we there's an opportunity to get federal funding from the bipartisan infrastructure law to help homeowners in Hawaii, with this conversion issue.
Oh, so you can use federal funds for this as well. What about, okay, to play devil's advocate for just 1 second. Yeah. What would you say to the point? Well, why should we create a special section for cesspools in the wastewater branch of the Department of Health? Why not just have the wastewater branch of the Department of Health take the issue seriously and elevate it within its own department?
Yeah, and I think that's a good question. They're already taking it very seriously. It's just that it's just understaffed and underfunded. And so we really need to, I think the governor is working on elevating the environmental part of the Department of Health, because it really is, the top positions are focused more on health-related issues. And we need to build up this, because it's an opportunity to go from, we're in last place right now among all the states. We're the last to ban cesspools, and we have the most per capita, like I said. But with new technology and funding opportunities, we could become a leader in the country. And I'll kind of tell you why it's important on 3 different levels. Environmentally, new science has just come out, and I wrote an article in Hawaii Business Magazine in September based on a new study in Nature that showed that cesspools are basically kind of killing our coral reefs. The nutrient loading, the phosphorus and the nitrogen from these and from failing septic systems and injection wells are killing the reefs. Now, that's more than just an environmental problem. That's a health issue as well, because it's also full of contaminants and pathogens that can hurt the reef and nearshore populations. But when we get down to just the bottom line, because there's some people that are like, oh, we've had cesspools, they've never been a problem, why worry about it now? Well, if we lose our coral reefs, that's an existential threat to Hawaii. That's
we also have
threat.
A situation, it is, and we also have a situation where people will say that, but a lot of the cesspools, there's one of the great graphs in working with the contractors on issues that are coming on different fronts, but similarly related, shows that a lot of these things the permits to build them were done like decades ago. And especially in South Maui, there's numerous cesspools and other things which were done decades ago. So, the fact that people might say, oh, well, all these years they were fine, but now would you say that now that they've gotten so old across the board that the risk of leakage and compromise has exponentially been increased?
Yeah, and I think, in rural areas where people had cesspools away from the coasts, it might not have been an issue. And people might say, oh, my cesspool is working fine, I don't have a problem with it. Well, people downstream do. And so in upcountry Maui, there was a study that showed there was elevated rates of nitrogen in the drinking water and private drinking wells, and that's there are correlations with that with blue baby syndrome and with elevated rates of cancer. There are new studies that show if you have too much nitrogen in the water, it can lead to certain types of cancer. And on the Big Island in Hawaii Paradise Park, 50% of the private drinking wells they sampled had fecal indicator bacteria in it. So if that doesn't make your stomach turn, I don't know what will. These are serious health issues as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is a brief segue, and it's just a curiosity question. One of the issues raised in the injection well Supreme Court case was that the nitrogen levels were acceptable under the Clean Water Drinking Act. Do you think that there needs to be a look at nitrogen through the Clean Water Drinking Act at the federal level, or should the legislature call upon the feds to do so? Or what are your thoughts upon that?
Yeah, that's a really profound question because, I think the latest research, Stony Brook University released some studies in New York where that's the only place in the whole country that has more cesspools in Hawaii, and they have the highest levels of nitrogen in their drinking water, and they're the ones that shared the information about these elevated rates of cancer that they think are associated with it. And so right now, the legal federal limit is 10 milligrams of nitrogen per liter, and I think that's got to per microliter, per milliliter, and I think that has got to come down dramatically because I think all the new research is showing that we do need to lower those legal limits. So that's a good question.
Yeah, so that's good, and so hopefully that's something we can take next step. Many homeowners listening might say, "Well, I want to convert my cesspool away to something else." One of the things that septic systems are the common alternative that are used now, correct? In most cases for cesspools, insofar as trying to bring a system into environmental compliance.
Yeah, and so what that new go ahead. So what that new study in Nature that I mentioned that just came out in August, and you can read about it in the Hawaii Business Magazine article. It says basically even just traditional cesspool septic systems. So if you upgrade a cesspool to a septic system, and basically that's a septic tank where all the waste from the house goes into, and then the solids settle at the bottom, and then they go out into a leach field. Even that, the nitrogen levels are too high and will kill coral reefs. And so there are simple fixes, and we're working on nature-based systems that can do the denitrification. But we need to do the denitrification on top of those traditional septic systems. And we think we can do it without spending too much more money.
Near the ocean, then there still, in your opinion, needs to be more of work to remediate them and their impacts.
Yes, exactly. So if you're in a certain distance from a water body, within 200 feet of a water body, whether that's a stream or, you have shallow groundwater in your area or near the coast, then it should definitely do denitrification.
Yeah. Okay. The other issue that's come up in the past with people who've been wanting to convert, and it's mostly on Hawaii Island, but also maybe here, has been one, space limitations, that they don't have the space to put in a leach field, and then the second one is that the area that bring up Hawaii Island, because they have a lot of lava, right? It's all rock, right, and therefore they can't put in a leach field. What would be something for them, or is that a misnomer, and are those things addressed insofar as trying to adopt a septic system? And if not, what is there an alternative to move away from cesspools for those people?
Yeah, so what we're trying to convey is that along with the need for denitrification is decentralized wastewater treatment systems. So instead of trying to convert 83,000 individual systems in areas that are rural and suburban where they're very close together, like Maui Meadows and parts of Kihei, Hawaii Paradise Park on the Big Island, a decentralized system is going to be much better because it's monitored. They're going to make sure they do the denitrification, and it's more likely that we're going to get some kind of funding, federal funding to do that, because traditional sewer systems like we have, the municipal, are just too expensive. We can't do them. And in Hawaii, it's on the Big Island, it's about $5 million per mile to lay sewer line, this big gravity sewer lines. And so we're looking at innovative technology that has, smaller diameter pipes that can be trenched right beneath the surface, 1 to 2 feet beneath the surface. And this model is called pressurized liquid-only sewer. And then you have treatment plants that can be shipped in, and they're the size of, shipping containers, and they can be pre-engineered for these areas. And so instead of digging in the ground and doing these huge municipal plants that are just so expensive, we can do smaller plants that just take care of this area. And then the best news of all, in light of what happened, in Lahaina, the tragedy of the wildfires, is that when you have decentralized systems, you can use that treated wastewater, to irrigate green belts and serve as and do fire prevention. So
that
we're looking at that for
huge component about this technology has been that, because our need, we put money through bills last year to try to develop, green belt for South Maui in particular, and so this could be an agent in green belt development, and that definitely is welcome to this for people on Maui.
Yeah, the kind of looking back, we had during that Maui injection well case for Lahaina, I was one of the litigants in that, and we were proposing to use the treated wastewater instead of pumping it into injection wells where we know it had an effect on the other end of the coral reefs. And we had major decline where the seeps were coming out. We said, let's use it for fire prevention. So, I think going forward with places like Ma'alaya and perhaps Maui Meadows, we really, and in most leeward areas of the islands where it's very dry and you have a lot of just dry fuel in the form of guinea grass and these other plants, let's create green belts, which also serve as windbreaks, fire breaks, and greenways for people to walk. They're beautiful. And it's hard to think. Yeah. So there are a lot of advantages.
Oh, yes. And we're actually working on that with the community people are with the Corps on trying to develop these greenways as part of the phase 2 improvements for remediation removal. For debris removal. One of the things that, the DOH had the working group, and they went ahead and they provided an original pilot program for $20,000 reimbursement, right, for homeowners to try to convert. But you're saying that despite these efforts, the technology of a decentralized wastewater system that would allow multiple hookups but not have the cost of the wastewater, should that be the direction then of the DOH, either through a working group of the cesspool or through an elevated cesspool department within the wastewater branch? Is that something they should be looking at trying to partner with? And how's the county, have they weighed in at all as far as adapting this to areas like Ma'alaya?
Yeah, and so, we have an upcoming town hall meeting with yourself and Councilmember Tom Cook on Wednesday, December 6th, and we're going to be talking about this. So I encourage people to, tune in. They can check out our website at waiycleanwater.org to find out more information about that. But, I think, Angus, we're going to have to go in both directions. So we're going to have to convert individual cesspools in rural areas and places, because these decentralized plants are going to take some years to do. Although we've made great progress in Ma'alaya, and, the mayor has committed to moving forward with a decentralized system there. And it could really be a model for not only the rest of Hawaii, but the rest of the country, actually, in using treated wastewater. But in the meantime, we do still have to continue converting individual cesspools where we know they're not going to be extensions and they're not plans for these, especially when they're near the coastline and they could affect, coral reefs. And so, they passed a bill. I was lucky to be in the governor's office for that signing, and that was Act 153, and that created $20,000 rebates for low and moderate income homeowners. And to show you how high the demand was, they had $5 million in funding for that. It was all encumbered and taken advantage of it in 3 days. Wow. And so, this session we're hoping that was very successful. So we need to move that forward. And, instead of doing rebates, it's not going to really help low income folks who might not be able to afford that. Maybe we can do grants or work directly with contractors so that they can do the work. But we're also going to have to refund that pilot program and create more funding. And a really interesting way we're working with the counties and the state to do this, and we've got a call later today about it, is to the state to allow the counties and encourage the counties to charge cesspool impact fees. You can say the coral reef protection fees, on homeowners with cesspools and start with a lower fee because they're the only people who aren't paying. Everybody else is either paying sewer fees or upgrading their systems, and yet the cesspools are the problem. And then that money would go into a fund that cannot be rated or touched just to help low and moderate income people with the cost of cesspool conversion. And so this could generate, tens of millions of dollars a year that is specifically to help people who need it the most.
Okay, now, and it will still be using that income tax mechanism from the measure. There was the measure last year, which encapsulated this idea, was House Bill 1396, right? That died in conference in the cattle call. Was that the vehicle to try to advance it last year that you're hoping to bring back this next session?
That was that had other aspects and as part of it, and well, yes, I guess it included some income for upgrading cesspools, but I think became like a big omnibus bill, and so the first thing they tried to do was
the crib notes. Definitely picked up a lot of. My good friend Congresswoman Takuda would say, picked up some interesting tales on its journey through the committee process.
Yes, exactly. It was almost too large in a way, but that appropriated funds for the cesspool section at DOH, which is super important, and then those people that they hire can also be used to go after federal grants. To help homeowners in Hawaii. That's one of our big priorities is we just want to help homeowners with the cost of conversion because it can be really high. And in those areas, like you said, there are a lot of areas in Maui where they don't have enough space to put a leach field. In the Big Island, it's just rock, and so it's too expensive. And so, there are innovative technologies that we can use. We work with, a company called Elgin that can do these nature-based systems, and a group called Ridge to Reefs. It's a nonprofit like ours that can also do nature-based systems. And so you could do this in front of the cesspool and then convert the cesspool into a seepage pit, and you really could get the water going into that seepage pit being at a much, much, much higher level. So it's much safer. And so that might be an option in areas where there's just not enough space for a traditional leach field.
Are these options or groups going to be at the meeting in South Maui, or to add to the discussion for those who are interested in being able to convert out? Or are we just focusing on explaining the technology of the decentralized system you were alluding to earlier?
No, we'll cover everything, all the different technologies that are out there, from like just individual systems to larger cluster systems and big decentralized systems. So we try to cover everything and then go over all the health and environmental and economic reasons why we really need to do this. Because this isn't just something, I think sometimes people think, oh, these are environmentalists, raising hell about, another issue that doesn't really affect me. This is one of those issues that affects everyone because, Hawaii, its number one economic engine is tourism. If our water quality continues to deteriorate and our reefs deteriorate and the fish go away and we have like rubble where there was coral, we're going to lose tourism. There are other places in the world where people can go. And so, it does have a very basic economic bottom line for all of us. And it's just, as our name suggests, vai is the essence of life in Hawaii. It's vai is the name, a Hawaiian word for wealth. It's like if you have access to clean drinking water, then that was a sign of wealth and still is in a healthy society. So we just can't damage our most precious resource.
No, and this is for many of our Native Hawaiian communities. And my good friend, rest her soul, Melly Carroll used to say, this is the oceans are the food basket for the Native Hawaiian people. That's where they practice traditional gathering rights and fishing for subsistence. And, that damage basically destroys that chain and helps. And the damage is across the board. And even the director of Department of Health said, I mean, the science is clear. Public health and environmental are intertwined greatly.
Yes.
And we've seen it over and over again, repeatedly, both through studies and through places like, Love Canal and such, where, and so do you think that given this, that it's worthy to have a discussion about perhaps reorganizing the entire Department of Health into two agencies, where one of the agencies, either the original Department of Health or the new one, would be focused on environmental and public health and the interconnectedness, which would then elevate the cesspool, into a higher status within the new agency? Or do you think that the way it's housed now, that despite all the duties, it's still a better system?
No, I think you're right. I think the environmental aspect of the Department of Health definitely needs to be elevated. And I know the governor, has talked about this because Hawaii is kind of a model for the rest of the country in the fact that, the indigenous wisdom of the Native Hawaiians is they realized we are the environment. It's not separate from us. It's a reflection of who we are. And the more we contaminate our environment, we're just contaminating our own health. I mean, that's a basic fact that I think modern Western society is finally coming around to. And to give you like an example of how serious it can be, in Long Island, New York, where they have the most cesspools, as I mentioned, we have the most per capita, but they have the most in just sheer numbers. Their shellfish industries in huge areas, and this is an industry that's hundreds and hundreds of years old, has completely collapsed due to the nutrient loading and sewage pollution from these cesspools, inadequate systems. So there are also very bottom line financial costs and environmental and health issues associated, that our folks in the fishing industry should be really concerned about as well. Because we continue to take like the reef fish away, and we take them at unsustainable levels, and they're the ones that protect, the coral, because what happens is the nutrient loading creates algal overgrowth. And even though you have toxic algal blooms on the surface in areas all up and down the East Coast, in Hawaii it's below the surface. So they smother the reefs, and that's what ends up killing them. So you're feeding them the nutrients from this wastewater. The algal overgrowth completely, covers the coral and smothers them.
Yeah, it's like a fertilizer.
Yeah,
and they thrive off of this stuff, and they just explode, and the reef dies as a result, which is part of the reason why, in my mind, the injection wells at Kahikili, which is the reason why with Darryl Tanaka guys that we did the prohibition against taking herbivores in the area, because of the explosion that was occurring. And of course, now the link's been made to the injection wells, but you can see, that is an example, I guess. Another question, Stu, real quickly, as I know we're kind of running up against the end of our interview, and thank you so much for being here and doing this with us. Very informative. One of the issues raised has been the role of aging infrastructure on wastewater systems and water systems generally. There's maps through ArcGIS that show, in particular, South Maui, where you have pipes that are like 40 years old plus, and many of them on the bottom part of the pipe have corroded so that they're open, or that the seals or the joints have compromised. So the phenomenon is either groundwater is going into them and you're basically sending groundwater into your cesspool or your sewage or to the treatment plants, or it's leaching out through the pipes into the groundwater. And close to the ocean, the seawater could actually come in. Is this a phenomenon or a thing that you think needs to be addressed alongside with cesspools? I mean, if we convert to septics, but if all the pipes are corroded and leaking and either pulling seawater or groundwater in to be treated or putting it out, do you think we need to address this along with the cesspools in areas like South Maui?
Yeah, it's a chance to do kind of look at all of these things at once. Like infrastructure is something we've ignored in this country and in the state for far too long. And our water and our wastewater are just two of the most important things. And it's a sign of how advanced a society is by how well they take care of them. And so we've got a lot of work to do. The good news is this is going to create lots of jobs. And these are green jobs that won't go away. They don't have the boom and bust cycles of, tourism sometimes and the construction industry. It's like, this is the health of our, of our INA and our VI. And so I think, the more we kind of invest in this, the more we get back. It's a really good investment in people too, because they're good jobs, and we will ensure that we are still one of the top destinations in the world to come, that we have, we value our environment, and people can see that. So I think it's a chance for us to show leadership, to replace these aging pipes, and just become a model for the rest of the country.
Yeah, exactly. One of my old friends used to say, in Hawaii, the environment is the economy. And to underscore your point there about how, everybody loses across the board in these kind of with the aging infrastructure. And, and given this Build Back Better funding that's coming, the state and the county should be, in your opinion, should be much more aggressive about trying to pull that down to address these kinds of issues, in addition to trying to find further funding to address these?
Yeah, I really think we have an opportunity to kind of, and I know Majority Leader is working on this, and Nadine Nakamura, to really get the counties working closer with the state, and instead of just kind of trying to make up for old damage piecemeal, like really trying to envision how can we do this in a way that's really productive, that stimulates the economy and brings in new businesses to the state and creates new jobs. And like I said, we'll be talking more about this at the town hall meeting with you and Councilmember Cook on Wednesday, December 6th. Yep. At 6:30, and that's virtual, so people can join via Zoom.
Excellent. We invite everybody to sign up. They can contact our office. We'll have the information at the end of the show as well. Look forward, Tom and I look forward to welcoming you to Kihei, and then for your presentation, for the questions and everything. So thank you again so much, Stuart, for being here today and being our guest on the show and having this great conversation about a very crappy situation. Third time.
Yeah, exactly. And mahalo, Senator McKelvey, for all your good work on this issue, because we couldn't have passed those previous laws without your help. And we will turn this crappy situation around one way or another.
Exactly. And I think that's the thing. Let's invest in ourselves, and that's the rising clean tide that will float all boats. Right?
Exactly.
Stuart, thank you very much. It was a great conversation. I learned a lot, and I know our listeners did too. And we do encourage people to sign up for the Cesspool Town Meeting Wednesday, December 6th at 6:30 via Zoom. You can go to eventbrite.com and also sign up there. So thank you again for the conversation, and we appreciate all the work that you do.
Thank you, Tom.
Now, Angus, 10,000 comedians out of work, and and I think you found your shtick on this thing.
So how do you think I got myself through college?
Yeah. Now, you're going to
be a joke, by the way, everybody.
you're going to be at a Rotary Club meeting in Kihei today. They're celebrating their 45th anniversary.
Fingers crossed that the rain won't flood everything out. But yes, it's the 45th anniversary of the Rotary Club of Kihei and Wailea. I've been a member of Rotary myself. My mom was, one of the original founding members of Lahaina Rotary way back in the day. That's how I got exposed to Rotary, and now there's several clubs all over Maui that all do great work with the community, and all these different events. Some of the key things that they do is the school supply drive every year that we do before the fire. The Lahaina one would help to organize and host the 4th of July, which, we help to raise money for band programs and other types of athletic and other community endeavors. And then, of course, part of it is bringing interesting speakers like Mr. Coleman to the community to share their wisdoms and ideas and to help people network with each other and create connections professionally and otherwise. So it's been a great organization, and happy 45th to the members of the Kihei Wailea Rotary Club. And Tom, you were there, so how was it, that first meeting?
45 years ago, well, I just stepped off the, as I mentioned to you before we went on the air, I just got off the Wright Brothers plane, and went straight to the first meeting of Rotary. I used to be a member of this club. I had to move off of because I started working in another part of the island. But it's a great bunch of people. And you may recall, Senator, they came up with the rescue tubes along the
Yes, they
coastline there.
did.
So the people were in distress or what have you. The lifeguards had these tubes, and also people could help out. They've actually saved lives of people who were in
Yeah, well, there was a
distress.
problem when they were first being installed with liability. So Senator Baker was her version of the bill that eventually became law. We introduced companion bills to, basically to address that issue, and they've saved lives. And I'm glad the first thing when they first came out, unfortunately, they were a subject of vandalism and
Right.
such. But it appears now everybody seems to get how important they are. Is that they seem to be pretty well respected. But obviously, that is an issue in the program. But the fact that they did this and they got it out through their organization and got out way quicker than the government could have was really important. And so we're glad we were able to help assist them in that liability issue. But this is one of the many things that Rotary is doing, and very excited to help them celebrate their 45th today.
And also coming up is an annual event, the Hanson Ohana Christmas Toy Drive. You want to talk about that for a moment?
Yeah, Hanson family has been running this drive for over 20 years. They've been doing an amazing job of getting gifts donated. The toys are donated to Friends of the Children's Justice Center, and they're distributed to children all over Maui County. I was very blessed to join them last year at their presentation event where they had the gifts from the kids and everything, and they work very hard on this, and it's a labor of love, and so I appreciate everything they're doing, and they help brighten up the Christmas for so many of our keiki. And this year in particular, their hard, amazing work will be very well appreciated, given how children's lives have been devastated and turned upside down in West Side.
Now, these toys are donated to the Friends of the Children's Justice Center, and you can drop off, people listening can drop off gifts at any Bank of Hawaii location on Maui or at the Hanson Ohana offices in Wailea Town Center. And just as a truth in advertising, when I was a young kid with my sister, I actually went to the Salvation Army parties and was the beneficiary of an unwrapped toy. And I can't tell you how much fun that was. So, folks, if you want to really give a child a great Christmas, drop them off at the Bank of Hawaii location on Maui, any location, or at the Hanson Ohana offices in Wailea Town Center. You're going to make a kid really happy.
Yeah, Tom, quick question should people wrap the gifts or should they just drop them off?
Unwrapped gifts are preferred, and also say, maybe young teenagers, aged like 12 to 15, 16 years old, something like that.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for that information. So, yeah, everybody, please, those are the locations you can drop it off, and you'll definitely help brighten somebody's Christmas this year.
Now, Senator, you get community feedback all the time. Is there anything you want to share with us before we leave the show about getting community feedback?
My friend, Mr. Joyner, Buck Joyner, everybody knows him from South Maui. He's been there for years, speaking out passionately for the community. Sent some video footage of blockage that was occurring of trees and debris. And one of the very critical location is the Wahipulani Drainway. He took a video of a walkthrough of that very narrow drain showing all the stuff that will block the tiny culvert under South Kihei Road when rain like this occurs. The concern a lot of people have is that this rainstorm Kona Low will deepen and be big, and that the 50% chance of rain, which was for yesterday, is going to increase to 90% through the 2nd of December, Saturday. So Mr. Joyner pointing this out, putting the video is very important and timely. We communicated with the county, and they have been working on the other one next to the high school, Kaneohe Gulch, and we're hoping that they will work on that too. There's a bill that we're going to reintroduce this year that was introduced by a colleague of mine from the Windward side several years ago, but it's to get the state DLNR to assist in doing culvert and large tree removal from the streams, critical streams like this that are critical waterways.
Is this
it didn't make it, and so, but I'm hoping that this bill will come back because that could be extra resources to be able to assist the county in being able to clear these critical drainage areas quickly.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Senator, for interrupting you, but was that the Kitagawa bill that you're talking about bringing back?
Yes, the Kitagawa bill, correct.
So, do you have any words for people? El Nino fire lanes, Kona low storms?
Oh, well, no, I mean, El Nino did dampen our hurricane season, but however, hurricane season finally ended. Whoosh. But obviously, as you saw with the Lahaina fire, the effect of a hurricane passing south of us and the acceleration of the trades the hurricane force winds caused helped to create this huge disaster. And so we did, so that was, unfortunately, even though there were very few storms and none made a direct hit, we did suffer a hit per se. But that being said, we're in an El Nino, which means we're supposed to have less Kona storms, less rain. We're still in the deepening drought, but Kona lows like the ones that are coming this week can tend to be more severe and stronger, which, because of all the droughting, will lead to more quicker rapid flash flooding.
And Senator, we have about a minute left. Can you tell the audience how to contact you with questions or concerns?
Yes, everybody, if you want to contact my office, questions or concerns on issues either the state level or with the county government in general, 808-586-6070. Our email, send McKelvey, all lowercase one word, at capital TOL.Hawaii spelled out .gov. Our Facebook, Instagram is at send McKelvey. Please contact us. Our amazing staff's there to help you. We won't guarantee 100% success, but we will guarantee that we'll work 100% plus to help try to resolve your problem.
You have a terrific staff, Senator. And folks, be sure to tune in to Capital Connection every Wednesday at 7 a.m. right here on KAOI 1110 a.m. and its affiliated FM stations. And stay dry.
Stay dry. Aloha, everybody. See you next week.
Aloha, Senator.